City of Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission meeting, recorded October 1st, 2019.
Call to order the October 1st meeting of the Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission, and I'll ask Leanne to please call the roll.
Kirschling.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Ostrowski.
Here.
Westcott.
Here. We're waiting for Commissioner Carlson. He'll be joining us, I believe, momentarily. Item 2 on the agenda is the President's report. I believe Commissioners Kirschling and Moore, you have received emails from the City Personnel Director, Lisa Yakush, concerning the evaluations for the police chief and the fire chief. She has, for the benefit of the entire commission, the city's deadline for evaluations to be finalized and submitted to the city is Monday, December the 9th. So we're going to continue to proceed. What I would like the commissioners who are liaisons, Commissioner Kirschling and Commissioner Moore, as we discussed recently, a preliminary goal setting should be taking place in the month of October, please. Let's again push what we call stretch goals. Let's include those. What I would like to do is make it a part of the November Police and Fire Commission for at least the commissioners to have a preliminary discussion on goal setting. We're not going to, set the goals that day, but I'd like to hear where you are and what you, in collaboration with your chiefs, have determined to be a stretch goal or two. Make sure there's concurrence from the commission, and then we'll move on with that. The other item I want to at least point out is Leanne has distributed the amended agenda for the Police and Fire Commission, where the EMS budget amendment was added. I want to thank Corey Laddick, our comptroller, and Assistant Chief Gemza for working really overtime to get this thing ready for October. We'll hear from both of them in just a couple of minutes, but again, the city continues to be served by a very vigorous team of professionals, and we appreciate your work. That's a lot of overtime there. The other thing you may notice, if we later today take close-ups on the T-shirts of the fire service, they're wearing pink underneath. We'll ask Chief Gemza to talk a little bit more about what October and the significance of pink in the fire service, and a very important fundraising goal nationwide, as I understand it. So thank you for that. With that, our presentation for the month of October is about the Fire Marshal. The Fire Marshal's presentation, as many of the commissioners know. Fire Marshal is a relatively new and important position in the city of Stevens Point. So with that said, Joseph, would you like to do the formal introductions, and then we'll have the Fire Marshal join us at the podium there.
By all means.
Thank you.
As Commissioner Westcott has stated, this is a new position that we've recently created. It's been just under a year since the creation of the position, and Fire Marshal Egan has kind of hit the ground running, and we thought what better way to let you guys know how he's doing than to let him give a presentation on his office and how the Fire Marshal operates. So without any other interruptions, I gladly introduce Fire Marshal Drew Egan.
Drew, you have the floor.
All right, so as Chief Gemza said, I'm Drew Egan. I am the City Fire Marshal. Started last December. The position has been going well. And I scheduled this presentation along with the chiefs here because not only pink shirts in October that has significance to us, but October is also the month that Fire Prevention Week takes place for our students in the county and in the U.S. So we'll be going through a quick presentation of what I do, what the position does, what some of our achievements have been this year, and then just a quick overview. Hopefully some citizens in the city see this presentation and they'll be educated on what our third graders in the county are learning this year. So I run the Fire Prevention Bureau for the Stevens Point Fire Department. And we can kind of get into a little bit about what I do in the Bureau. So my main concern is fire safety for the city. So we'll take a minute here, this is going to be a little interactive slide here, and talk about how fire safety is overlooked generally by a lot of people, but it's always ready for us. So first question I have for you today, Commissioners, is where's your secondary exit other than the front door? Does anybody know?
That would be the east door.
Okay, yep, good. So you guys know it. They're marked by our exit signs, and there is an exit door straight down the hallway here.
Right.
How about the next one? Where is our nearest fire extinguisher?
Behind the door?
So it's not behind the door. Fire extinguishers by code have to be visible and ready, and your police department here actually does a really good job of keeping their extinguishers up to date. It's actually just directly outside of the classroom door here, so we all walked by it walking into this meeting.
Is it by the men's room door?
Just, it's actually on this wall, just to the right of the door there.
Okay.
So fire code ensures that we have an extinguisher ready every 75 feet. So hopefully in a building, you should never have to go any further than 75 feet before you run into an extinguisher. And the last one is how do you activate the fire alarm in this building and where?
Pull the lever down out in the hall.
Yeah, so fire alarm levers, or pull stations as we call them, are located near every exit. So at all the exit doors in this building, you'll notice that there's a red fire alarm box. If you pull it, will alert everybody in the building and turn it on. And the police department does a great job of keeping up on those as well. So 3 things that are there for us every day that we never really notice until we need them. So that's one of my main jobs, is making sure people are not only educated about it, but making sure that these systems are there for us and operational when we need them. Another example, this has changed a little bit luckily, but back in 1974, the feds passed the Federal Fire Prevention and Control Act. So what that act did was essentially realize that America was burning, lots of big fires in New York, Baltimore, all of our large cities, and they recognized that fire codes are state rights, but that they needed a little bit of push. So one interesting quotation from that report is local fire departments spend about 95 cents of every dollar appropriated to the fire services on efforts to extinguish the fires and only about 5 cents on fire prevention, which I think is a little bit backwards of how it should be. Again, this has changed a little bit. We spend a lot more on fire prevention now with great programs that states have made, the feds have made, but it's still a little bit imbalanced, right? Fire trucks cost about $1 million, depending on what you're getting. Fire extinguishers cost anywhere from $50 to $100. So the cost balance there is a little bit different. A little bit further on that act, some of the names of these organizations have changed. Now we pretty much have just the USFA, which is the U.S. Fire Administration, remaining from this act. But as you can see, it essentially created federal agencies that would help states give grants, track data, and try and figure out why America was having all these fires. And a lot of it came down to just poor prevention, poor education. And again, we've really made great steps in the U.S. on that. As for state fire prevention, I did mention that the feds recognize that fire codes are state rights. So in Wisconsin, we do have some state rights on picking our fire codes, enforcing our fire codes, and those are listed as follows. So adopting a fire code comes from our state administrative code. So that comes from the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services. And that's in SPS 314.001 subsection A, which reads, adoption of a model fire code, NFPA 1, Fire Code 2012, subject to the modifications specified in this chapter, is hereby incorporated by reference into this chapter. So that's the specific code when somebody asks, why do I have to follow this gigantically thick book that you're trying to tell me to follow? That's what I need to reference them to. That is our state law that tells them this is the code that we use. A little bit more on that book, it's called NFPA. So there is a private entity, but this private entity is made up of all sorts of people. So engineers, sprinkler fitters, politicians, basically anybody that has an interest in fire safety makes up the committees of NFPA that basically writes these codes. So they realize that people like me, even though I'm a firefighter, I'm not a licensed electrician. So when I want to write the fire codes, I should probably go get myself a pretty good board of licensed electricians. So there's a lot of factors in these fire codes and a lot of people that you might not think that have input into these. Since we're in the police department, I know there's a large panel of police officers that deal with jails, prisons, how to safely detain prisoners while keeping them safe, as well as the police officers. So a lot of players that come into picking these codes and writing these codes. Furthermore, in the state administrative code does give fire departments an explicit responsibility to conduct fire inspections. So as you see here, the chief of the fire department shall be responsible for having all public buildings and places of employment within the territory of the fire department inspected for the purpose of ascertaining and causing to be corrected any conditions liable to cause fire or any violations of any law or ordinance relating to fire hazards or to the prevention of fires. So we actually are given that responsibility by the state, which is why it's very important that we do these inspections and we have positions like my own so we don't let these fall by the wayside and cause liability for ourselves. So to break it down in the layman's terms, what exactly do I do? I've included some pictures here. Most of these are actually from our jurisdiction in the city, and they're showcasing various fire code violations that I found. So as you can see in this first picture, it's a little bit dark to see, but we have a surge protector power strip that has a plug broken off there. It's still plugged in, it's still an energized power strip, and the contacts are there. So if you're reaching your hand down to try and plug something in, the results could be quite shocking to you. So another one we find in our apartment buildings a lot here in town is smoke detectors. So apartments in the state of Wisconsin by statute are required to have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. A lot of the times they're old, disabled, whether that's done by the tenants or the landlords. We're there to make sure that at least once per year they're up to code and that they have the chance to go off and alert the residents. Next year is from an apartment building here in Stevens Point. Somebody was trying to do the right thing when they were doing some construction. They protected that smoke alarm, but when they were done, they never took the cover off. The other thing that was pretty alarming about this was that these are actually interconnected smoke alarms. So in some cases, our landlords are trying to do the right thing and putting in these expensive systems where if the alarm goes off downstairs, the alarm on the second or third floor goes off. This one would have prevented any alarm in the building from going off if there was a fire in the basement. So again, these are the things I go through and check for. Another example here. Again, if you're not sure what you're looking at, it can be a little bit difficult. We have outlets here wired with remnants of old extension cord. Also plugged in there, we have exposed wiring where a tenant was actually running outlets in the garage using a piece of Romex that was passed through walls, outside through insulation, and actually ran across the ground in the yard where they were mowing over it, walking over it. So all of these things have fixes for them that are directly laid out in fire code. So it's pretty easy for me to go into the book, figure out what needs to be done and what's wrong, and give these people some guidance. Now these next two are not from the city, but there's some more extreme examples of goofy violations that we sometimes found. I have found similar violations to this. So fire extinguishers have to be mounted. However, if you look closely on this one, they've actually screwed that fire extinguisher down to the mount. So it must have been being bumped off, and they really wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to get bumped off and damage their fire extinguisher.
Oh, good grief.
And then something else that people don't know is I not only go in and inspect old buildings, but I also make sure that new buildings are constructed properly as well. So any new building in the city has to meet my fire codes. I have lots and lots of meetings beforehand to discuss hydrant locations, fire department connection locations, so we make sure we don't end up with a situation like this. So the Fire Prevention Bureau has essentially two facets to it, both inspection and arson investigation, which I do with the police department as well. So we'll go over some of our progress we've had this year in the inspection side of it. One of both my and the program's achievements this year is becoming NFPA Fire Inspector 1 Pro Board certified. So this is a week-long class down in Chicago. They hold it all over the U.S. And this was a class actually held by the NFPA. So the people who write these codes taught me for an entire week how to interpret this code, what's right, what's wrong. And then I was heavily tested at the end of the process by an organization called the Pro Board, which generally comes in and makes sure that you're testing correctly, kind of dictates how your testing will be held, and what kind of real-world experience you need to have to also complete your testing procedure. So I did successfully pass that class, and I did become Pro Board certified, and I'm planning some more education from the NFPA, hopefully in the upcoming years as well. Next class is Fire Alarm Installation Methods Certification. So that was a 2-day course. Went down to Milwaukee and was taught by quite a few electricians about how these actual fire alarm systems should be installed to make sure that we're not having either unlicensed people or having detector heads installed in wrong locations. Basically giving me the ability to look at a system without being an electrician and make sure it was, and installed correctly. Next facet here is the implementation of a new inspection program called Streamline Inspections. We just started that a couple days ago, getting that set up. That should be able to let me do essentially more with less. It will make some of my inspection correspondence automated, so it will really take a lot of the clerical load off of me, giving me time to go out and do more stuff out in the field. So I'm really excited to start using that program. And then two new relationships I'd like to talk about on the inspection side is my relationship with the building inspection department. We have worked with them in the past from the fire department, but I've really tried to bring both of our entities together along with them and bounce ideas off of each other. They have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to codes of new buildings. I have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to codes about fires in buildings. So we've done some good things and taken care of some properties in town that I'm sure you're aware of and had some positive outcomes, or at least on their way to having a positive outcome. And then the next relationship is with the contractors and architects in the area. I've met a lot of them, getting on a first name basis with them, and it's really helped us with some things such as hydrant placements that we really haven't had much of a say in before, or we just haven't been referencing in the code book. And we've had some good movements forward on making sure our trucks fit into some of these new apartment buildings that they're really packing into the city and trying to make compact, making sure that they have the correct amount of hydrants, making sure they're placed in areas where we can get to them. And then finally, just to kind of showcase the amount of work that we're taking on, this year we've already had 1,720 planned and completed inspections for the year. That's compared to only 1,200 planned inspections in 2018. And our inspections for this year are going up as I do more re-inspections, as I go out and finish these initial inspections. And that's a combination of just doing more inspections, finding new things to inspect that we haven't been in the past, fire alarm inspections when they're newly installed, kitchen hood inspections when they're newly installed, and then just some of the codes that we're applying have changed some of the violations that we found, which are generating more re-inspections. So that's the cause for the increased workload. But we're handling it just fine. And then the second facet of the Fire Prevention Bureau is investigation. So whether that be for arson cause, just finding out what started the fire, we've made some pretty big movements in that as well. So everybody that's in charge of leading the investigation team so far has completed their prerequisites for the ATF Advanced Origin and Cause class. So that's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. They hold a class down in Alabama at their training location that gives some really, really good training. It's all free, and the 2 or 3 people that are in charge of the investigations will be taking that class hopefully soon. And we've done a lot of prerequisite work, be it paperwork, extra training to make sure that we're allowed to take that class. Currently, we've investigated 9 fires in the city. We've had more fires than that in the city, but 9 of them have met our criteria, either through motive or dollar loss to be investigated. We've also assisted more in private sector investigations this year than we have in the past. So many fires, after we determine there's no criminal intent, are investigated further by insurance companies because they have access to electrical engineers, laboratories, and we've worked with them a little bit more with that than we have in the past, making sure that we're keeping evidence around for the insurance companies to collect. So for example, I have here a dehumidifier fire we had. We were able to find that it was a dehumidifier that caused the fire, find where the fire started. Obviously, I don't have the knowledge to tear that dehumidifier apart and find out exactly what part went wrong, but some of our private services have really appreciated us preserving that evidence so that when they come in, they do have the dehumidifier to take back with them. So that's been a big push for us, is making sure we're keeping the scene intact for these private sector companies as well. We've also done great with our quarterly training completed with the police department, and we're maintaining an excellent working relationship with them. I love the people that we work with for investigations. They'll come out, rain, snow, shine, and help us no matter what. And we've done some great things with them and had good outcome on a couple of cases that we worked with on together. And then we've added 2 new members for the investigation team in 2019. So something's working, we're growing, getting more people interested in it. And to finish up here, we'll do a little blurb on Fire Prevention Week. So Fire Prevention Week is always held the week closest to the 9th. So this year it's October 6th through the 12th. This is held throughout the U.S. Every school in Portage County does it, generally taught to 3rd graders. And the theme for this year is not every hero wears a cape, plan and practice your escape. So again, hopefully this makes it out to some of the citizens of the city. But what we're forcing this year, or trying to focus on, is making sure we're doing those escape plans. So making sure when mom and dad aren't home that you know where you're supposed to meet. Do you go to a neighbor's? Do you go to a safe spot in the front yard? Do you know how to get out of your bedroom if you live in an apartment? Where do we go? So we have literature at the fire department that is available. And on top of these topics, we push out what's available at the fire department. So we have,
There it is. Now it's back.
we have diagrams that people can come pick up at the fire department. They'll be distributed to the school children as well, that they can take home, trace out what their room looks like, trace out what their building looks like, and write a plan that they can review by themselves of where to go and what to do in the event there's a fire. On top of many other things, we teach them about smoke alarms, match safety, everything under the sun. So, but we always have one topic per year we really push heavily. So we do have a link there I can send out. That's where you get the material if you'd like to have a digital copy of it. And finally, I'm just looking forward to 2020 and making the city a safer place. And if anybody has any questions, I'd love to take them.
Drew, generally speaking, you're out on an inspection, you showed us some violations you found, and you bring those violations to the owner's attention. How is it generally received? Is it, oh, I didn't realize that, oh, thanks, or oops, you caught me?
It's a mixed bag. Some inspectors are different than others. Some push the fix this because I told you so.
Okay.
I don't like that approach.
No.
I like doing the education style. So here is the issue. Here's why it's an issue. Here's the code on the issue. It's pretty hard for them to argue with something when it's written in a book. And most of them, once you explain to them, this is what will help you and why you want to do it, take it pretty well, and they get it fixed very quickly compared to just, you need to fix this. I don't want to look up in the book why, just do it. If you push the education side, most people realize that you're a safety and liability tool to get liability away from them and increase their safety, and they're more willing to comply.
Well, one of the commission's goals here is as you have already outlined, was to reduce the number of fires in the community. So off the top of your head, without any preparation, how many times in the last year have you walked away having found a significant deficiency and said, I'm really glad I was here today, it wasn't going to be long until something got started here? Has that ever occurred?
More than I could count.
Okay.
One occurrence comes to my mind where we actually caught something in the act. So I was in a local business. One fire code violation is what we call daisy chaining surge protectors.
All right.
So everybody has the surge protectors in their homes, right? They're great if we need to power things like a couple laptops or a few lamps and you don't want to install another outlet. However, what we find is people plug in 5 laptops, 2 coffee makers, a refrigerator, and they're daisy chaining these things together.
That's the comptroller's office, right?
Possibly. I haven't inspected the city hall yet, so we'll get to it.
All right, okay.
But that's because budgets haven't come up.
So, as I found this violation, I explained to the owner, hey, this is a pretty dangerous situation. And she said, well, we just had that. We had a large meeting in the conference room. We needed more outlets for laptops. And she said, no problem. We'll fix it. We'll get rid of it. And as we were taking it apart, she said, I'm having some difficulty getting these 2 plugs apart. I broke my wrist as a child. I have issues with grip strength. Could you unplug this for me? I couldn't get it apart either. And I'm not strong, I'm not weak, but I was having issues. So I ended up unplugging it from the wall, prying it apart with a tool that I have, and we found 2 outlets that were both hot and completely slagged and melted together. So she actually gave that to the fire department. She didn't want it, and she wanted it to be a training prop for other people in the city. And that was, you know, it's hard to say sometimes. Would it have started a fire? Would it have just kind of smoked until somebody noticed it? It depends on if anybody was in that building. If it was overnight, we might have had a large fire. If it was during the day and somebody caught it, we might have just had a small incident. But, you know, there's a lot of ticking time bombs, I find. It's hard to say when or if they would cause a fire, but that's the point of the code, right? It provides a reasonable level of safety. We're not there to get into every nook and cranny of the building and find old wiring or anything like that. It's to give citizens a sense of, if I walk into this building, I have a reasonable suspicion that I am safe, I can get out if there's an issue, or I can stop an issue if need be.
That's right. Other questions for our fire marshal? If none, I will thank you for the professional presentation, and we'll look forward to an update on, I'm sorry,
Very well done, very informative.
Thank you.
look forward to an update on how 2020 went about this time next year.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Drew.
Commissioner.
Thank you, well done. Item 4, members of the Police and Fire Commission, approval of the minutes. You have a copy of the minutes for September 3rd in your packet. I have no editorial modifications to offer. Thoughts, comments from my colleagues?
I'll move approval. They look good to me.
Motion from Commissioner Moore to approve,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Kirschling. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, confirmation of the bills. Members of the Police and Fire Commission, you have the bills in your packet. Commissioner Ostrowski has reviewed and included them. Bob, you have the first kick. Go ahead, sir.
Okey-doke. Starting with the fire department, the monthly bills, just a reminder, you know, your monthly versus your budget, when you look on the back, the monthly total is not gonna be on the yearly total because they're behind. Also wanted to let you know that when you see that US Bank, that means it's a credit card bill. So you understand, we're not sending an awful lot of money to US Bank for nothing, no reason. That's what it is. Under the actual bills themselves, I find nothing unusual other than to let people know that we put a lot of money in this city into education, and it's paying off. Our departments are very professional, but it costs money to do that. As you can see, we had a few tuition there. When you looked at a budget, the year-to-date budget on the fire department, we are only at about 56% spent, so we are well in line. Some items are over the budget, but I think this is all straightening out as we, how would I say, expand our budgets, identify targeted areas and stuff being lumped together. It is being separated out. And I commend both departments for doing that. It's something I've been pushing for long and hard. And when you go to the ambulance one, again, nothing jumps out under usual. Again, education, and you can see some of this education is between both the fire and the ambulance, and that is because 50% is charged to one, 50% to the other. You look at their budget for the year, and it's about 53% plus the other side. Again, nothing that's really out of whack. Their department is doing a great job on staying within lines. When you go to the police department, very lengthy one, but if you stop and think that one of those represents about 30 to 35% of the budget for the month, and that is the communication failure here at the police department. I understand that was server repair. So when a server goes down, am I not right, Chief? That was what it was?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's the
I'm sorry,
$3,800 item?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry, I apologize. This one was not the server, this was actually with the integrated heating and cooling system of this whole facility. This was effectively the brains of the heating and cooling system that had failed due to lightning strike.
But it's not a monthly occurrence, it's some kind of an accident happened.
Would that
and-
cost be recoverable by insurance if it's a lightning strike?
Because of the deductible amount, though, for the city, that's why it
Corey, come on up. The comptroller's itching to get in here, so.
I think the chief knew the answer as well, but basically the deductible for the city on property is $25,000. So if it's less than $25,000, it would be entirely the city's cost.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right, I'm sure the chief knew. I was going to ask, but continue, Robert.
Okay, and then you move
Thanks,
to their
Chief.
monthly bills. Again, you see some dramatics that are over 100%, others that are at zero. This again is due to the fact that we're expanding the budget to be more precise of where money's being spent. But the overall budget is in the 60% area, so again, the department itself is doing a good job of staying in line. With that, I would recommend approval of the bills.
Are there any other questions on the bills as submitted before I entertain a motion? Commissioner Moore?
On the police department for the monthly expenditures, the membership dues are at 144%. What memberships would those be for?
So we have several different groups that we belong to, so whether or not, as, for example, myself and the two assistant chiefs belong to the Chief of Police Association.
Sure.
We have several different investigation groups, whether it's ICAC, which is sensitive crimes, things like that, where they'll hold conferences, and part of attending those is being a member of those, which in some respects offsets the actual training costs, is the membership dues.
Okay.
All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Ostrowski to accept the bills as submitted.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Kirschling. Any further questions? If not, all in favor of
Aye.
adopting the bills, please say aye.
Aye.
We'll say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6, update on the K-9 program. We actually have 2 K-9-related topics here today. We'll get to the Century donation in just a little bit. But I've asked Chief Skiba to update us on the K-9 program, replacement, and status of that program as of today. Chief?
Would it be okay to move the donation number, well,
I'm going there next.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If you want to include it, that's fine.
All right, thank you. So we were very fortunate, as I'm sure all of you have seen in the news recently. Unfortunately, we had a loss of one of our new K-9 officers, and Century came forward and wished to make the donation to pick up the actual cost of a new K-9 to move our program forward. We recognize that we did need to maintain 2 K-9s to serve our community as well as we have been doing. And so Century, as I said, came forward, made a donation of $20,000 in your packet. There is a letter describing that from Century. And we look forward to working with them in the future. There's talk with them currently, myself, the Comptroller Treasurer, about the expansion of what a K-9 program can do. So as an example, they've offered their facilities for us to do training within them with the K-9. And again, it's not just a matter of drug searches. This is for search and rescue, this is for tracking. And so this provides us actually real out in the field training. And so we look forward to continue our partnership with Century in the training aspects and things that we can do for our community. And with that said, we're actually working with the Von Lick Kennels. They reached out to us and said, we understand this is a unexpected loss for you. We want to be able to help. So they actually moved forward and allowed us to get into their next training course, which is going to be the very beginning of November. So in late October, our Officer Ballou actually will be heading down to Indiana again to make a selection, and we're looking forward to continuing with our K-9 program.
Refresh our memory, that training program is how long, Chief?
So that is a 6-week training, 6 weeks in a row that they go down there.
Mm-hmm. So operationalize it end of November?
We would be, actually we'd be looking at
December?
Mid-December
Okay.
is when we're expecting them to be back on patrol.
All right. Okay, any questions for the chief on the update on the K-9 program and getting that second dog back on patrol mid-December? He has alluded to the item on the agenda from Century Insurance. The donation from Century Insurance is 11. With the permission of the commission, I'm going to move to that. The administrative policies and procedures of the Police and Fire Commission require any donation to be formally reviewed and formally accepted by the commission. I repeat, the answer was a public event, but we need to formally accept the donation as a commission. I will so move that the city accept the donation and put it toward the K-9 program.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Kirschling. Questions?
I'd just like to state to have a community organization like this step forward like this is totally commendable. It really speaks high. It's classy to have an organization like that in this town.
All right, and I think they have already been appropriately thanked publicly, so the formality is taken care of with the motion to accept the donation. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, and again, as I would concur with my colleagues, thank you to Century Insurance. Item number 7 is an update on the 2019 capital budget. Members of the commission, you have in your packet the updated 2024 capital improvement dated September the 9th. I presume, Corey, that is the latest generation here? Yes. All right. It is self-explanatory. Let's begin with Chief Skiba. What would you like the commission to be aware of as we have reviewed this? I had a couple of questions a little bit later, but I'll let you touch on your key points before you.
So first, on the second page of it, about midway down, the reason I pointed out is our fleets many years ago transferred under the street department in managing it and putting in the request. Working with them closely, understanding we have a variety of vehicles, and clearly they're going to cycle through at different times. We currently will be replacing several of our detective vehicles coming into 2020, and so that was an expenditure of approximately $68,000 in capital. We then move actually to the last page, and though
Chief,
it's,
just
I'm
if
sorry.
we may pause, no, it's my fault, I interrupted. The next item under that is the police squad cars. By replacing them, the 6 patrol units in 2021, that's still consistent with the 3-year replacement plan?
So yes, that would be consistent, although, and I apologize, sometimes some of the data in the far left may be a little misleading. Though it says 6, I believe that is actually 8 marked. So if
Okay.
people are looking at why the number is so large for that number, I believe that 6 is not the accurate count
All right, but
of
just,
that for that
just
rotation.
concurring for our notes here that replacing the patrol units in 2021 is in the 3rd year of their life cycle.
That is correct, yes.
Got it, thank you. Please continue.
And then moving again to the last page, with the building, first of all, we were very fortunate working with the vendor that we have here, working with our decontamination showers. Though we were approved for, I believe, $68,000 this year for that, we were able to come well under budget, and we had plans to do multiple things within this building, and we were doing that as money's allotted. And as you came in today, you'll most likely notice that, I think it's boarded up right now, but there are holes on the front of the building where actually windows are being installed. One of the classrooms is now being retrofitted into actually what will be the administrative assistant chief's office, as well as the administrative lieutenant overseeing the investigation bureau. And that's one of those things that was earmarked for about, I believe, $100,000 based on the Bray architectural work done. And again, those were estimates at the time. We were able to come in and get some of this work done. Again, utilizing the vendor that we have, understanding to meet our needs. But my point being is that though there are several things listed under the building for expected projects and move to example 2023, if you will, some of these between that $68,000 and the original $250,000 that council had approved for our move-in to secure this facility, make sure it was safe, and took care of some odds and ends things. With those monies, we're able to take a couple of various things off this list. Now, specifically which ones, until the end of the year, I can't tell you. But we are, working with the treasurer's office, trying to be fiscally responsible in what monies have been allocated, using them in such a way to, again, make this building more appropriate and effective to be a police department.
Okay.
But with that said, one of the items, so when we looked at this roof on this structure, we recognized that this northern portion still had some life in it. The recommendation was to have all of your roof replaced at once if you're having a vendor come, but again, you kind of triage sometimes your dollars. This particular section of roof, does have some life in it yet, and so we are on occasion still needing to do patchwork, unlike the other half of the building that actually council had approved money for last year, and just yesterday we received bid approval, and so that work will be getting done on that half, the primary portion of the police department. So where our records window starts into the south will be replaced this fall then, and so we will have a new roof over that structure.
You're going to be able to get that in yet this year?
According to our streets department director, Director Badoon, and the vendor that applied, they believe they're able to do it. That particular roof is a ballast roof, so it's a matter of, they don't have to worry about the gluing and things like that. It's simply a matter of pulling the flashing off, getting the ballast off, putting the new roof on, and bringing the ballast back on. And I understand it's more complicated than that, but it's not as much of the gluing and all of that. So from a weather perspective, they're not quite as locked into temps and things such as that, as I understand it.
All right, thank you. I was just worried about the clock there. What else, Chief?
So moving forward, looking at, you'll notice the big ticket item that I wanted to bring forward is under the IT, so to speak, which is actually, though it's listed in investigation, again, I apologize, some of these categories get skewed, but part of our requirements through state and fed are that we actually have particular levels of security with our IT and public safety. Certain things need to be segmented from other things within the city. And this past year, the council had approved tens of thousands of dollars, I believe almost $80,000 this year for it. This coming year, they're approving, if they approve this capital request, another $110,000. And I believe we still have an additional $40,000 out there for remaining things. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, as technology is what it is, sadly, it does cost money to meet the, unfortunately, unfunded mandates of the state. So they're not helping, but they're telling us what needs to be done, and we understand it. And this council has been very good in helping us with that.
Does 110,000, does that correct the issue, or is it?
So some of the stuff is not even a matter of correcting, but adding to the level of securities.
Updating.
But yes, it is. It will bring us in line with their requirements.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else, sir?
Lastly, we do maintain two frequencies, two patrol frequencies within the city. One located here at Gerke, one actually, again, as we had mentioned Century earlier, another plug to them. They've allowed us to be located on top of their structure of their main headquarters as our backup frequency. Those, however, radio units are at end of life, and each come in with installation approximately 20,000 apiece, and so we'll be replacing those. And over the next half dozen years or so, we are cycling into end of life over our portable radios and our mobiles as well. So you'll be seeing, or the city will be seeing, some relatively large capital requests coming in those areas in the next years. Those would be the highlights of our
All right.
capital requests.
Appreciate it. Chief Gemza, what would you like us to know about the current state of the capital budget plan for the fire and EMS service?
Okay, so we'll go right to page 2 of 5, where we go down to fleet, and we'll get into the brush truck and the fire ladder truck. The brush truck, plow truck, we moved back to the 2021 projected budget for capital, and that would be for $36,000. We felt we could get by with what we had right now, and we were going to push it back a little bit further. The big ticket item on this would be the ladder truck that we're slated to replace this year. What we did was we did a little figuring and opted to push that back to the 2022 budget. And then instead of replacing a ladder truck, we opted for an engine, making the fleet a little more mobile and agile to be able to carry some water. With that, we project about a $350,000 savings to the city. So the engine, we figured in 2022 would be around $655,000. So that's kind of that was kind of something we wanted to note that we put out there. analyzing our equipment and our apparatus and realized that we could probably do a little better for the people of Stevens Point. So
What is a ladder truck going for these days?
about $1 million is what it was budgeted for.
Okay,
So
thank you.
with the $55,000 in 2022, we figured we saved about $350,000.
Good. I'll remind the comptroller of that frequently.
I do every day. As a matter of fact, we do, it's on his email.
Oh, okay.
It's just a reoccurring email.
right.
Oh, by
Proud
the
of-
way, Corey, that's
Proud
what
of
I
you,
put
Joseph.
down.
Please continue.
So then if you go to page 3 of 5, you can look at, we were asked to prioritize our requests, because we
Okay.
had quite a few. Basically, when you read this, what I need you to think about is 1 through 4 are basic reoccurring capital projects. In other words, that's turnout gear, hose, general fire equipment, and rescue equipment. Those are things that every year needs to be allocated in the capital in order for us to operate. Then once we get down to 5, 6, and then as we move down. So we got our reoccurring that we had asked for, which was very nice. And we were also to get our 5, which would be lapel mics, and that will be another reoccurring because that will also keep us out, keeping our radios up to date also at that point. So this will replace the lapel mics on the radios, which is the piece that sits there that they could talk through, and then they can link it to their headsets. And then after that, radios will be so that we can continually update radios on a regular basis rather than do it all at once.
Good, good.
And then if you look at the infrastructure and remote training connection, those are both rated at number 6. And that basically kind of brings the fire station up to 1996 technology. That's a joke, you guys can laugh. But apparently not. But so what we've realized is that this is a tough crowd. That's all I can tell you. That basically, after we've done a lot of looking through the fire department and all that, we've realized that none of our systems work together. It's very cumbersome for us to do our reports, which is all internet based. And making sure that the infrastructure of the department works. So we're spending a lot of personnel hours and time trying to get stuff to work that should just work on a regular basis. The mayor and the comptroller acknowledged that the fire department, both stations, are behind the times when it comes to the infrastructure for the IT, which we had talked about last commission meeting, saying that this is the way the future is going and we can't ignore it. The remote training connection, which we thought would help us out, would be it would be a whiteboard solution so that both stations can stay in-house and we would have the capability of training interactively with the computer simulations and stuff like that. So in other words, if we wanted to do a first-in report, we would be able to draw on the whiteboard, and both stations would be able to use it and communicate back and forth.
So we're not shuffling trucks around all the time.
Exactly.
Right.
And
Good.
and that was also completed.
Good.
The only thing that we had really looked forward to possibly working towards would have been that training site with that 1 acre.
Yes.
And the reason being is because the DCI and Mid-State, we'd worked together with them to ensure that we could have a training site with them. And it looks like we're moving forward with that, just not at the rate of speed that we would have liked to have. But the DPW has been working with us to get the site ready, and so that we can at least have some sorts of training on there. So
Good, you can update us in the near future.
most certainly will. Are there any questions?
I have none on fire.
That hurts.
Commissioners, Alex?
I don't have any questions.
All right, it's just an update, we don't need a formal motion. Final action will take place, I would imagine, at the normal council budget approval in November?
Capital is approved in
Yeah, we'll get you over there, Corey.
All right,
Actually, no,
so
it should.
capital is actually approved in October.
Really?
So, yeah, we changed that process just to give more time to discuss both capital and operating separately, because it used to be that it was really 1 month to do both, and that was kind of a lot to go through. So our new process is we do capital first and then we do operating. So capital is, will be going to October Finance and then October Council.
And you're anticipating what we have reviewed here will be the final product?
That is up to the council. So, I mean, basically what you've reviewed is what's been presented to the council and recommended to the council. Typically, they have not made a lot of changes in the past, but of course, it's up to them.
Stay tuned. Thank you, Corey. Thank you
Yep.
for your work here. Okay, let's,
Gary?
yes, sir. Yeah, go ahead,
Can I
Robert.
ask one of the chiefs a question?
Of course.
On the police department, I noticed the gas masks were pushed back. I know those have a timeline. They expire at a certain time. Does this put us in any kind of a problem area?
So the portion of the masks that actually expire are the filter cartridges. And so part of it, and we do replace them as needed. But with that said, as the masks themselves get older, the cartridges get harder to find. In working with the treasurer and the mayor, realizing that, are we able to at least carry, do we have the filters that will still get us another year? Yes. So that's why we were agreeable to.
And we will not be violating any safety rules or?
No, we will be taken care of, and actually we are reducing, again, recognizing that though every officer had been issued with a gas mask, we recognize that they're not put in those environments to justify the actual outright expense, so we are looking to just replace actually our SWAT teams, so they are properly prepared and equipped.
Thank you.
Good, thank you for the update, both chiefs and the comptroller, we appreciate it. Item number 8 is the EMS budget amendment. That was what we amended our agenda for today. The Assistant Chief Gemza and the comptroller have been working, as we have been heard several times during the ambulance negotiations, that it would require a budget amendment for the period of time not covered exclusively, or the period of time that is covered in the contract would require some adjustment. Corey, you want to take lead on this? Tell us about the work, and then Joseph, you can add whatever you'd like. Go
Sure,
ahead,
I
sir.
can. So the budget amendment is before you. Basically, if we run through the numbers here, we had originally budgeted $2,057,610, and then our agreement with the county, they only gave us 1.5% increase for the year 2019. So that resulted in an updated revenue number of $2,027,645, which was a difference of $29,965. So roughly $30,000 that we had to come up with. Went through the budget, really looked for line items that we felt were not going to get expended fully for 2019 anyway. So we did come up with a few of those, the most significant of which is the off-duty ambulance trips. And that is partially due to an operational change at the fire department, not calling in as many people back when those off-duty transfers are taking place. My understanding, Joe, is trying to accomplish that with the existing staff that are in the fire department at the time. So that saved $15,000. And then you also have some adjustments in the related fringes, also related to that. And then you have a few other line items where, we maybe had a little bit of a cushion on the gas and electric bills, the telephone bills, and of course you don't really know year to year what exactly your utility bill is going to come in at, but we did kind of shave some of the cushion off of that. So, one of the results of the negotiations with the county is that, we are budgeting a little bit closer to what actually needs to be spent, I guess, or to say we're taking up some of that cushion.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, the third, fourth, and fifth items that have been listed here springboard off of the item number 2, savings? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Joseph, what would you add to this, Chief?
I don't have much to offer outside of that, just to note the off-duty ambulance trips also covered hospital-to-hospital transports where we would have to call in extra personnel. And our operational guideline is more of an emergency services rather than a transfer from hospital to hospital. And Spirit's home base being here now at Stevens Point, they have a tendency to do more of those hospital to hospital transfers, which then alleviates some of our operational pressure.
Questions from commissioners?
Well, that was my main question, Joe. Spirit has tapped into that a little more.
Yes, they
I
have.
noticed them going past my place a lot more. So they've taken up some of that.
Yes.
All right, the timeline, as I understand this, and if I don't have it, please correct me, Corey or Joe. The commission, pending approval today, this matter for the budget amendment would then go to the City Finance Committee next week?
Yes.
And then on to the council in October?
Yes.
Right, because we have to get it implemented to get it accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
Yep.
With that, I will move approval of the EMS budget amendment as submitted to the commission.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Kirschley. And any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you again. A lot of hard work here by your office and Chief Gemza. Okay, item number 9 is the Fire Chief's report and EMS report. Chief Finn is not with us, obviously, here today, as you can see. Chief Gemza is substituting for him. Chief, what would you like us to know about the reports?
Well, obviously, we had Fill the Boot in September, and that was a success. I believe it was $17,000 that we raised, but I'm not 100% sure. We also continued with our training, and with that training, it was EVOC, and that was done out at the airport, which is a joint, I guess, training that we do with the airport, where they allow us to utilize the airport sections for us to do emergency vehicle operations. And so that's really nice. We do that every year, where we set up the cones and we make sure that every personnel that might have to drive the vehicles emergent will have that kind of training. Everybody passed, so that was an added bonus. MABUS conference was held. Special thanks to Shane Westfall, firefighter paramedic Westfall, who helped coordinate that. The MABUS is the mutual aid box alarm system that's held. The Wisconsin division is held here in Stevens Point. And then we hosted a picnic at Station 1, and I believe it was a little over 200 and some people came and enjoyed. So that was a success, and special thanks to Shane. Another thing we did, Lieutenant Cook and Chief Finn coordinated a peer support training where we brought in a counselor to give a 2-day presentation on the importance of peer support. We had officers from La Crosse and all sorts of areas that also came in and participated in that training. So that was kind of a feather in our cap, I guess is what you'd say. When you look at the ambulance, I'd like you to note that if you would look at Medic 1, you will see that Medic 1's runs numbers are actually up from the same time as 2018. And then if you looked at Medic 2's, you'll see that Medic 2's appear to be down a little bit. And as a whole, you would see that area is down a little bit. So what we've done is we've started to put a committee together to look at those that run volume to see if we can kind of make an equilibrium of run volume for Medic 1 and Medic 2, so that those areas will respond still in a timely fashion, but to equal out the payload.
Joseph, are you referencing actually Medic 3?
Medic 1.
Okay.
And then if you look at,
I think he's
I'm sorry. And the anomaly with Medic 2, and I apologize with that, was that last year Medic 2 was out due to the fact of the ambulance issue. So what you would see is those total numbers would be down. So different ambulances were moved into that area.
Okay.
So I do apologize for that. You are correct.
Right,
So are
okay.
you trying to say that you're trying to get the two of them to be more balanced in responses?
Yes.
So that instead of having one with 1,500, you've got two of them with around 1,000?
Exactly. That
Okay.
is exactly what we're looking at.
Use of the equipment, right?
Yeah, the equipment, the personnel, and making sure that the workload across the board is equal.
Good. Would you like to just spend a moment to talk a little bit about the month of October and the significance of pink to the fire service, please?
I sure would, but I want to refer to Assistant Chief Moody, who was asked to speak on this topic.
JB?
Asked to, huh? Volunteer.
Really, Joseph asked him. Chief Moody? Pink in October, sir.
All right. For the month of October, the Stevens Point Fire Department will be wearing pink. And it's in support of women in their fight against breast and other forms of cancer. This year, we are doing a fundraiser at the Stevens Point Fire Department for Tracy Ramchek, a local ER nurse at St. Michael's Hospital, who this year was found to have cancer. We are standing behind her and supporting her with this fundraiser. And what we're doing is we have designed a pink t-shirt at the Stevens Point Fire Department for sale. $10 a t-shirt up through extra large. And then if you need subsequent double X or triple X, there is an additional cost to that. But again, the t-shirts are being sold for $10. 100% of the profit is going towards and supporting her. So those are for sale at Fire Station 1 and 2. And again, they're $10 a piece. And that's why we're supporting the cause.
And the fire service has done this in previous years, too.
Correct. We have stood behind this for several years. I believe at this point, the Stevens Point Fire Department has supported this wearing pink shirts in the month of October for almost a decade now.
Right, that's what I thought, too. All right. Well, you're to be commended, all members of the fire service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, JB?
Yes, actually, I did want to add one thing to the fire chief's notes here. I apologize trying to have this out ahead of time. I just found out this morning that we were accepted for a DNR grant for $5,000. We are putting the money towards lapel mics, intrinsically safe lapel mics, and some other fire equipment. But again, we were just informed this morning of that grant being approved for the tune of about $5,000.
Congratulations. When will the grant be awarded, do you know?
The grant, basically as soon as I sign the paperwork and have it back October 15th, it'll be awarded. We're going to look at purchasing the equipment starting sometime just after the first of the year.
Okay, good, thank you.
And we'll have more to follow on that, but I just wanted to make sure, as of this morning, we were made aware of it. I wanted to let you guys know as well.
I can't tell you how I noticed the comptroller's eyes light up when you mentioned that. All right, Chief, anything else you want to include in your report?
Nope, I am good.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to
Gary,
approve.
I would like to add one thing to
Yes, go
report.
ahead, Robert.
Just to let you know that the Portage County EMS Oversight Board put on hold the action of disbanding till October now, meaning they're still planning on doing it, but they weren't ready to go ahead at the last meeting, so to let you know.
Joseph, what would you add to that? Thank you, Robert, for reminding me of that. I know, Joseph, you had sent me an email on that. I was gonna follow up, and I forgot to do it. What would you like to add to that, sir?
They're exploring different ways to make the committee relevant without making it a monthly meeting.
Okay.
So they think that there appears to be a need for a certain amount of discussion between different municipalities regarding emergency medical services, and they're trying to find a way to do that in a more spirited and functional way.
Plus, what I took away from that meeting too, they're trying to do it where you can actually discuss things rather than where now you have to have a set itinerary. It's been limiting action of doing anything, getting things done, so they want to redo it so that they can actually discuss things as they happen. In other words, they're trying to get the pros together.
Like a public forum,
Yeah,
as opposed
that's
to.
the word.
Committee of the whole
Meeting with
instead
an
of-
agenda. Like a quarterly, hey, let's get together and chat about emergency management.
Sorry, who would, Mary, would you go over there, please? Mary, of course, is the liaison to the commission and serves on the EMS oversight thing.
Yeah, for the record, Mary Kneebone, 5718 Sandpiper Drive, District 7 Alderman, member of the Emergency Management Oversight Committee. A couple of the committee members objected to disbanding it altogether. They think it would be important to meet perhaps on a quarterly basis,
Okay.
more for a public forum to discuss ideas.
Okay.
I'm not real sure how this would go, who would oversee this, if there would be assigned members, or if it would just be interested parties.
So how is this
So
different than the
it's
tech
still-
team?
I think this is more, the way the idea was floated to me, outside of the meeting, would be 3 separate meetings at each of the providers' houses. And with that, it would be a forum for that same committee members to show up and have open discussion about EMS issues, related issues that they felt were pertinent. And then they would be able to maybe, view the equipment and that.
They're not real sure yet.
Yeah, it's more of a concept than it is a solid.
Exactly.
Okay, I think you can expect this to be a November agenda item. I want to hear more on this.
There was.
I would agree.
A couple things that if they disband the committee and have this little forum, oversight would go back to public safety. And the
Yeah.
thing that I objected to is that only county board supervisors would be on that committee. And I feel that since our fire department provides a big share of that service, that there should be at least a city representative for what it would be worth. Whether that will,
When is this group meeting in?
third Thursday at 4:30 at the Sheriff's Department Training Room.
All right, so I'll look forward to an update on where they're going with this in November. Commissioner?
And what authority would they maintain, if any?
There's no shift in authority. So the
Yeah.
EMS oversight actually had no authority. They were more of a recommended ideas to push up to public safety for Portage County. In the agreement that we had signed to participate in that, the acknowledgement that the oversight for all the city's personnel or the EMS system would stay within the Police and Fire Commission, because as we know, by law, you can't give that oversight to anybody else. The EMS oversight was originally agreed upon after the ESCI study came to effect, understanding that there were many layers of government overseeing EMS. And the thought process on that was to try to bring them together to see if this oversight would actually work. But knowing that Amherst can't give up their legal obligation to oversee their ambulance service, the city of Stevens Point can't overlook their legal obligation to oversee theirs, and Plover can't now either. It's become more of just a lot of reports meeting, and because nothing can be decided upon and acted on through that advisory committee.
So it's not really oversight, and it's really no authority.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
So, which is why we were in favor of disbanding it.
All right, I think we'll take another look at this in November. Thank you, Mary. Thanks, Joseph.
You're welcome.
I'll move approval of the Chiefs and EMS report.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, item 10, the review of administrative procedures of the Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission. The intent of this agenda item, Commissioners, is to update you on the work that is going on to basically, Robert, thank you, to update the commission on the work that is going on, to bring the current procedures, policies of this commission, which are required, of course, by law, because they are basically the governing rules for the Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission, up to date as to what has occurred here. Chief Skiba and Chief Finn with their management teams, and also with Leanne, and significant input from the city attorney have all provided updates to some of the language that you have read by now in the material that was distributed in your packet. What I have asked is there are many occasions in that report, in the updated draft document, where we're looking for additional language, we're looking for a statutory reference, we're looking for a clarification in existing city policy and how that integrates from city policy to policy applicable to the Police and Fire Commission. In a recent meeting with Chief Skiba and Leanne, we have charted the following course, Commissioners. The two chiefs will sit down with Leanne, and they're going to basically integrate into the document that you have any comment that is basically non-substantive in nature. This statutory reference has been changed to state stat, blah, blah, blah. Those are certain editorial updates. We can basically accept the edit and build it in. They're going to go through in the areas that we have identified where there is need for further clarification, either existing policy within police, existing policy within the fire service. Corey, I didn't really see anything terribly applicable to your office, but I'll take another look at it. They're going to do another cut, working with the two chiefs and Leanne. When they are done with that, they're going to sit down with the city attorney, and I have asked for some language. There are several occasions in the administrative policies that I'm sure you have seen where the city attorney has identified a need for a greater language here. I've asked him, actually Leanne has as of today, to basically do that as a homework assignment. Okay, you're looking for additional language, clarifying language. We'd like the city attorney to provide that language for the commission to review. So, long story real quick, the two chiefs will meet with Leanne. They will update where they can. They will then meet with the city attorney and provide recommended language on the city attorney's comments that are clearly understandable, looking for more language. And then the four of us will meet, and then after that product is finished, I will return to the commission and share with you what I hopefully believe will be almost the final product, looking for your input. Okay? It's not going to happen in the next couple of weeks, given schedules, but I just wanted you to know where we are, that we are making progress. Leanne and Chief Skiba and Chief Finn and Joseph, I think you've had a role there, and JB too, so thank you. We'll continue to work and take the lead on that. No further action really is required. We have handled number 11, donation from Century Insurance. With that, Commissioners, I will move to item 12, the Chief of Police's report. Chief Skiba, you have the floor, sir.
So, two things of note that are on this report would be under the note of interest and investigation bureau. Just want to publicly identify the hard work of one detective and another one who is going to be moving soon. So, first for Detective Lepak, who completed an embezzlement investigation totaling over $700,000 in loss. A tremendous amount of work goes into this, and I think with the administration's recognition that we spend a lot of taxpayer dollar in training, and in the past, many police departments, small agencies like ours, would rotate personnel out trying to expand the amount of people who have this experience and training, recognizing there's a greater value sometimes in maintaining these people in the position for a longer period of time. And this is a perfect example where this detective, just having the years of experience and knowledge, was able to work the case to its fruition and identify this great of a loss. The next would be Detective LaRank. You would know him previously as a drug officer working for the city of Stevens Point, and has many times filled in as a second when needed. He has been identified to move forward in January, and one of the primary reasons we chose him is he is ready to go, and as we've been seeking this position for some time, we recognize in any way we can expedite it, we're going to. And so we're looking forward to having that second well-trained investigator in that position immediately in January for this community. The things that are not in this report, however, I feel I need to update you on. Under the report, we had briefly touched, I believe it was last PFC meeting, on live streaming our presentations. In speaking with President Westcott and others within our department, we believe that November, we are hoping the PD will be presenting here to the PFC. And so we are planning and projecting that tentatively we will live stream that presentation and field questions from our community via Facebook and be able to be more interactive and reaching out to our community. So we are going to be trying that. It's a brave new world, as it were, at least for those of us less technologically engaged. So we are going to be trying that. Yesterday, myself and Chief Finn were fortunate to be able to participate in the kickoff for October's Domestic Violence Awareness kickoff that took place yesterday at noon. And all this month we will be promoting that through different preventative ways from our community side of things with Lieutenant Williams. Lastly, to make you aware, the community is aware that we did have an individual within our community that was planning to shoot officers within our community, had an AR, had body armor. Just today, I've been made aware that he's going to be federally charged on that, and so that's moving forward. And so we do appreciate how the community reaches out and addresses serious threats such as this. And so I will keep you up to speed on how that progresses. But so that would be the chief's report.
If I may, just a footnote to the live stream experiment. That will, at least right now, only be a live stream of whatever the presentation is for that month, be it police or fire. There is so much good information here, and certainly Sarah and John Quirk do a good job of providing that information, online or to their appropriate audiences. But Chief Skiba, as I think I have shared with my colleagues, brought it to my attention several months ago. There's at least one or other police agencies in the state of Wisconsin that are doing this with some success. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So at this point, it is not my intent to live stream the whole the whole meeting. We would do the presentation. For example, had we been doing it today, we would have benefited from Drew's presentation on the live stream. So, okay. Questions, comments? Any questions for our chief? Nope. All right, I'll move approval of the report.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Kersley. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item 13, we're going to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 1985, considering the employment, the promotion, the compensation, or the performance evaluation data of any public employee of which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility for a police officer applicant interview. I will entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session.
So moved.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Kershling. Would you please call the roll?
Kershling?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Westcott?
Yes. Okay, we are in closed session, Mary. Okay, we are back in open session following our interview process of candidate Ross Wiersba. With that in mind, I will make a motion that the Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission make a conditional offer of employment to Ross as a probationary police officer in the city of Stevens Point. And of course, that is contingent on Ross successfully completing all the remaining hiring protocols as required by the Stevens Point Police Department. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Carlson. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Ross, come on up. Congratulations. Welcome, officer.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank
Nice
you.
meeting you.
And we're adjourned, sir.
Congratulations.
And we're adjourned.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.